Hi guys, and welcome to another video. In previous video I showed you what is the concept of context engineering and how you can implement semantic memory, which is the first and the most important part of context engineering. In this video we're going to see the second implementation of context engineering, which is episodic memory. For those who didn't watch my previous video, episodic memory is previously what we defined as a few-shot example. Right now we can define them as episodic memory. And for those who don't know me and this is the first time that you're here, my name is Humayun and I opened this channel to cover everything about generative AI. So if you're not subscribing me, please push that subscribe button.
So let's recap what we did in our previous video. In previous agent, I defined a triage agent which was connected to 3 different sub-agents. I just developed this agent and showed you how to connect it to the MCP server and also pass the semantic memory as a tool in your MCP server. Today, I'm going to create another step for the triage, which is ignore. Triage shouldn't respond to every input query. There are sometimes that user try to inject some prompts to the LLM and LLM shouldn't respond to every input query that user is entering. And this is one of the use cases that episodic memory helps the agent to understand what should be responded or what should be ignored. Let's think about the implementation of episodic memory like this. Imagine you have a product and your product is an agent. This agent is receiving thousands of prompts every day and you are saving everything into your database. One day you're just checking these data and you understand that, okay, this is something that my agent shouldn't respond to it. So what do? You start cleaning this data, organizing them by adding a label to this data. And then this data, each of them should be added into your long-term memory. Let's see how we should do that. So what we do here is that we start with adding those data from database, obviously, but here I'm just adding some dummy data that I showed you in this file. And the second thing that we need is the store from the memory. This is something that I defined in my previous video. I showed you there how to define this. And this is the way that we define long-term memory using LangGraph. And as you see, it's an embedding model, which means agent is embedding all those inputs. And then when you want to retrieve, it's just a vector search to retrieve those data. So the next thing that we do is to save these examples into our long-term memory. And the way that we do this is by calling the put function from the store. We should define a namespace here, a LangGraph user ID, and the dictionary name, the key of the dictionary that data should be stored in it. The LangGraph user ID, which is the most important thing here, is that imagine that we have 2 different users and each of these users are using the same agent. The way that agent is retrieving the data from the memory is different for each of these users. So here we have our user that this information, these examples are being saved for this user. And if we change the LangGraph user ID, the way that agent is behaving would be different. I'm going to show you when I'm running this agent and you will see exactly how it works. So we save this information to the memory. Now let's define another data, which is advertisement again. And we define our search method here to search information from the store, which is the memory. And we define the user ID we already used here to store the information and the dictionary name that the information exists in it. And let's run this. There you go. And as you can see here, we have a ticket description here that it's labeled with ignore. This is an example that agent is retrieving through the memory, and we need to use these examples in the system prompt to show the agent, okay, this is something that you shouldn't respond. I also defined a helper function here that formats the way that agent is retrieving the examples from the memory. So in this way, It's much more clean and it's easy to read for the agent. There you go. So now let's see how we should use this inside the main agent. I already defined this code here. As you see here, we define the namespace, we retrieve the information, and then we format them in the way that we want to pass it to the system prompt, and then we pass it to the system prompt. And if you don't know what is this, I showed you in the previous video that in the prompt template, we have a triage system prompt. In the triage system prompt, we have our examples here, and we are just passing that variable into this prompt template. Also, pay attention that you should pass the store and config inside the triage router too. And the last thing that you should do is that you should go to the graph part, and you should pass the store into the compile. So when graph is compiling, it uses the long-term memory. Now let's run our agent. So as you see here, I'm adding those examples again to the memory because I'm using session here, and when I restart my session, all those memories will be removed from the session. So first we add all the imports that we need, the libraries and the files, and then we save the examples into the memory. Here I have an example that, as you see here, is another advertisement. There you go. The classification is ignore. And if we print it here, we don't have anything. Let's change the input prompt now. I'm going to change it here, and I write something like, I want to return my order, which is pair of shoes. And then we run it again. Now agent routed to the return and refund agent, and we can see here that agent responded to that ticket completely. Now let's check something. Let's go back to the previous ticket. Just we change the user ID here. Let's see how agent respond to this. You see, it didn't ignore this advertisement. You know why? Because the way that we save the memory is just for the previous user. It's not for current user. And if I change the user ID here again, you can see that agent will ignore this input. And this is the way that you can implement episodic memory. It's pretty easy and straightforward, but it changes the way that you define your system prompts significantly, and also increases your agent accuracy. Thank you for watching this video. I hope that it was useful for you. Share it with your friends or like it. This will give me motivation to create more content like this for you guys. See you in the next video.